Another ruse that many people don't realise is that the City of London is not part of England. There's a square mile which has its own state or corporation, and it has its own police force, the Metropolitan Police, and also it has this status of being a tax haven, and MI5 and MI6 run out of the City of London as well. And so let's look now at the City of London.
The British Empire had sunk, leaving hardly a trace behind. But the City of London adapted and survived. The City of London, London's financial district, is a peculiar place. It has been called a city within a city, a state within a state. It is run by an organisation called the City of London Corporation, a private company that performs all the functions of a local council with a private police force and private courts.
Those of you who aren't from the UK, some of you even who are, might not be aware just how weird a thing the little City of London is within the big London. The City of London is a separate entity to the wider London, and it has its own head, the Lord Mayor, who's distinct from the Mayor, who runs the rest of London.
Every November, the city stages the Lord Mayor's Show, the world's oldest civic procession.
The City of London has long had this curious legal status because back in 1066, when William the Conqueror came over, the city was one of the only portions of England that he failed to conquer, and he struck a deal with the city in 1067 that allowed them to continue functioning.
To this day, the City of London is exempt from numerous laws that govern the rest of Britain. Its political system derives from the Middle Ages. The city's electorate is dominated not by its residents, but by the private businesses operating within the city. Its Lord Mayor is selected by the heads of medieval guilds.
They have a representative in the House of Commons called the Remembrancer. Apart from the clerks of the court of the House of Commons, he's the only unelected person there.
All other lobbyists have to stop, in the lobby. They're not allowed past the lobby.
The City of London has a permanent representative in the House of Commons, whose role is to report back to the City of London Corporation and to lobby Parliament on behalf of the city.
The Corporation of London, clearly, it's a unique and interesting phenomenon that should have attracted many political scientists, political economists and economists. But I don't know of anyone who has studied systematically the Corporation of London and its impact on policy or economic policy. So we can only surmise. Some people assume or surmise that the Corporation of London is extremely powerful and is able in one way or another to shape British policy, particularly in financial matters.
Clement Attlee, the Prime Minister after the Second World War, had something to say about the City of London Corporation.
He did, yes. So over and over again, we have seen that there is in this country another power than that which has its seat at Westminster. The City of London, a convenient term for a collection of financial interests, is able to assert itself against the government of the country. Those who control money can pursue a policy at home and abroad, contrary to that which has been decided by the people.
At the heart of the City of London stands the Bank of England.
And although the Prime Minister of England, Clement Attlee, nationalised the Bank of England after World War II in 1946, it doesn't mean that all the debt that the British people owed after World War II was wiped off. Because when you look at this graph, you can see that the national debt of the British people has continued, and it was at a particularly high level after World War II when England was virtually bankrupt. And so let's have a look now at the private ownership of the Bank of England, because this is another ruse, and many people think the Bank of England belongs to the people of England, when really it still belongs to the bankers. So let's go and have a look at this plaque outside the Bank of England that tells us that.
Bank of England here, and it even says here on this pyramid thing, it says, let's just bring it. It says, close to this panel is the Royal Exchange, which contains a new retail development, Mansion House, the official home of the Lord Mayor of London during his year in office, and the Bank of England, founded in 1694 as a private company, is now exercising the functions of a state bank. It says it here. Get close to it. It's here, where my finger is. Bank of England, founded in 1694 as a private company, and now exercising the functions of a state bank. It doesn't say it's a government-owned state bank. It clearly says in black and white, founded in 1694 as a private company and now exercising the functions of a state bank. That is a private company that issues notes that are worthless bits of paper and that are backed up by nothing.
And so the Bank of England is privately owned and carries on the functions of a state bank, and this is what happened during nationalisation, was that the government stepped in and began running the Bank of England, and that's the only nationalisation that's taken place, whereas all the debts still belong to the Jewish bankers. And we know that the Queen of England is part of this ruse because the Queen provides the Royal Charter to the Bank of England, and in return the King or Queen of England always has some shareholding in the Bank of England, but only a minority. And so let's have a look now at the Queen going down to have a look at the Bank of England.
In the City of London, it's money that normally does the talking. But on their visit to the Bank of England, it was what the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh said that has got everyone chatting. After having been guided through the bank's gold vault, the Queen finally got an answer to a question she controversially posed 4 years ago. Here at a visit to the London School of Economics in 2008, she was heard asking why nobody noticed the economic downturn coming. Back to today, and
he and his group here are going to answer your question from 4 years ago, why nobody saw the crisis coming.
And after a brief explanation, another question, this time from the Duke.
There's not another one coming.
But the Queen, it seemed, was engaged and had plenty to say on the matter.
I suppose in money terms, it's very difficult to foresee. But people have got a bit lax, you know? Complacency.
And then a question about the city's regulator.
Yes, because the financial service, what are they called themselves? The regulator.
Financial Services
Authority, which was really quite new, wasn't it? Really. But it didn't have any teeth or something.
These are sensitive issues, and while couched largely in question form, the comments may be seen as interference.
She's asking the sort of questions that anybody else would ask. Anybody who is in business, anybody who is suffering as a result of the credit squeeze, anybody who is in debt, anybody who really is struggling. They would ask the same questions. It just so happens it was the Queen at the Bank of England. She had a captive audience in the very people that run the economy, so why not ask the questions?
In this case, the questions have resulted in a statement from the Financial Services Authority, in which they say, "We've widely acknowledged that the regulatory approach before the financial crisis in 2008 was flawed and has since been completely changed. Parliament is now awaiting royal assent for the Financial Services Bill." Like it or not, the Queen isn't just about handshakes and bouquets. What she says carries a lot of value. How much of an impact these comments will have is the £1 million question. Paul Harrison, Sky News.
And so that visit took place in 2012 during the Queen's Jubilee year, 4 years after the financial crash of 2008, which was caused by derivatives traders who created this bubble which burst, and so the bankers are entirely to blame for the 2008 financial crisis, and it wasn't due to complacency. And so the Queen is complicit with the bankers, and the Rothschilds should have been there to meet her because they control the Bank of England.